Hello, everyone. It's Mr. Macabre, and welcome back to my movie library. This is just going to be kind of an off-the-cuff kind of video. I just wanted to get some thoughts out of my head, and especially with Valentine's Day right around the corner. It's about a week away. I just thought I'd talk about the Twilight films. The reason this came about was because the other night I was at work and I was talking with some of my women friends at work, my female coworkers, and we just started talking about, we talked about Valentine's Day, and that led us into talking about romantic movies and love stories and things like that. And then that led us on to, we were talking about like Princess Bride, why Princess Bride is an amazing movie and stuff. And that got us onto the Twilight films. And some of my women coworkers, they were like, they asked my opinion because, for one, they love to read books and they know that I love to read books too. I mean, yes, I love my movies. God knows I do. And they know that. They know that I enjoy movies, but they also know that, I'm not, I'm not afraid to sit down and read a good book. In some cases, I've read some pretty bad books too. But they kind of wanted, they just wanted to know my, my opinion on the subject, and like, basically kind of like asking why is it that, guys are not really into the Twilight stories. And I mean, they pretty much have a general idea why, but they asked me, and I just kind of explained to them, that, why I'm not speaking for all men. This is just for me in particular. But, I just told them, I said, this is why I'm not into the Twilight movies. And, yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that. I think the biggest thing that bugs me about Twilight is that it's, I think Stephanie Meyers had the germ of a good idea, but it just wasn't executed particularly well. I think it could have been done better. I think it could have been done a lot more interesting. The biggest thing that really bugs me about Twilight, I know they asked me if you read the books, and I told them, I said, the only book I read was Eclipse, and admittedly, Eclipse wasn't that bad of a book. And, and the books do kind of give more insight into Bella's thought process and everything, which, I do appreciate, because the movies don't really convey that very well. And they did suggest, like if I get a chance, I need to go back and read the books, because the books, are better than the movies. But I think the biggest thing that really bugs me about the Twilight movies is that it could have been such a very interesting story, and it could have been a really good modern update of classic movie monsters, and it just wasn't done very well, I think the biggest thing that really bugs me is that I think it would have been a much more interesting, a much more challenging story, not just for Stephanie Meyers as the writer, but for the reader as, the readers of the book, and the viewers as viewers of the movies. I think it would have been far more interesting if Meyers she didn't decide to go back and rewrite the vampire myth in order to try to make vampires much more appealing. I think it would have been far more interesting if she had just taken the idea of a woman who has to try to fall in love with a monster. And I think that would have been very interesting. I think Meyers really would have challenged herself as an author if she had done that. How would a woman love this monster, and to kind of use the vampires, as they are described in folklore and everything else, like that would be more interesting, like, a more challenging way. Like, how would she come to love Edward, if he was this monster who killed people, and even though he does say he killed people before and everything, this whole idea that you need to rewrite the entire vampire myth to try to make it more alluring and everything else, that just didn't jive with me. I think it would have been a far more entertaining story, and I think it would have been interesting, especially from a woman's perspective. Like, how do you come to love a monster? How do you come to love this creature that, can burn up in the sunlight, this creature who cannot, who is repelled by crosses and holy water, cannot go into a church, things like this. I think, cannot see themselves reflected in a mirror, that kind of thing. I think it would have been much more interesting to hear it from a woman's perspective. Like, how would Bella try to justify her love for Edward that way? And, just to kind of get a peek into a woman's mind, like, how would you go about doing that? How would you go about try to make yourself love somebody like that? I think that would have been far more interesting. I just think it really takes away from it this whole idea that, mirrors have no effect on them. They have no problems with crosses. They don't burn up in the sunlight. Instead, they sparkle like diamonds, things like that. It's just, when you think about it, it's just not really interesting. And then, you bring the werewolf aspect into it with Jacob. And that's kind of a whole nother thing. But, starting off with Bella, Bella is just, I get the point. I've heard everybody talk about it. I've heard what they said. I get the point. The whole idea behind Bella is she's just kind of not much of a character. She's meant to be, I've heard what everybody said, Bella is meant to be this blank slate that the women who read the books or the women who watch the movies, they can project their own personalities onto. They can project themselves into her part and, kind of see themselves in it and everything else. I get that. But just, from a guy's perspective, it's just that it's kind of hard to go with that because, nothing against Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart isn't ugly by any stretch of the imagination. She's, she is a good looking woman, but I hate to say it, but when you see the women that they put her up against in the movies, I know this is going to come off as male chauvinist, but I'm sorry, but it's true. But it's like, she probably is the least attractive woman in those movie series. I hate to say it, but all the other women in those movies are infinitely better looking than she is, And so it's kind of hard, as a guy, you're sitting there watching the Twilight movies and you see all these guys are just, to quote Randall from Clerks 2, all these guys just getting, sex nuts and retard strong over Bella, but you got Anna Kendrick over here. When us guys in the audience, we're sitting here kind of scratching our heads and going like, you got fucking Anna Kendrick is right there. And it's like, dude, no offense, but I would take Anna Kendrick over Kristen Stewart any day. Sorry, just Anna Kendrick is more beautiful. She's more spunky. She has a more fun personality. She comes off as more outgoing and everything else. And, and you just kind of feel more for her character than you would Bella. It's like at the beginning when Bella first goes into, the high school and they're sitting in the cafeteria and Anna Kendrick's character, she's eating and stuff like that. And then then she says something about what was it talk about what they call it? Kind of like problems with eating and stuff like that. And everything, you see her kind of pause and everything, kind of feel bad because she's eating and stuff like that. Us guys would be like, no, baby, you look great. No, you got nothing to worry about. Matter of fact, us guys, we don't like women who starve themselves. We like women who have a healthy appetite. Okay, don't worry about it. And so it's just kind of, and then you see then you see the one guy is, you're like us guys in the audience, we would be sitting there like the one guy who hooks up with Anna Kendrick's character, but all he wants to do is get with Bella. And you're sitting there kind of like, dude, it's like, no offense, but it's like, dude, you're switching out prime rib for hot dogs. No offense, but that's kind of the way it comes off as. I don't know. It just, as a guy, I don't particularly feel much chemistry between Bella and Edward. If anything, and like I said, I'm not speaking for all men, okay? I'm just speaking, this is my own personal opinion. I'm just speaking on behalf of myself. I honestly don't really see any chemistry between Bella and Edward. It feels more like, it kind of comes across as more like once Bella finds out that Edward is a vampire, it doesn't really feel like she wants to be with him because she loves him and she wants to be with him. It really comes off more like she's attracted not to him, but to his power. She sees he has, the power of eternal youth. He has immortality. He has all, he's always going to be good looking. He's always going to have, vast wealth and all this other kind of stuff. It seems more to me like she's more in love with that. And then, going into the second story, New Moon, then you see she starts, getting on this thing. She's freaking out about getting older. She can't stand the idea of getting older. So that signals to Bella just being a very vain and kind of self-centered character and all this kind of stuff. And, that's what I'm saying. Just to guys, that's what it comes like. It doesn't really come off much like she's sitting here like, oh my God, I want us to be together and I want us to do so much and I want us to live our lives and all this other kind of stuff. It just comes off more like, okay, that's kind of the way it comes off. It's like, I'm allowing you to date me. So, because I'm allowing you to be in my presence, you need to give me your power. You need to transport that power over to me and everything else. And, when Edward tries to, I know some people will say it's gaslighting, but when Edward tries to, tell her wouldn't you rather just live your human existence and not worry about your soul being damned and just, being with me and us being together forever and all this kind of stuff. She's not having it and everything. And, then when, after the birthday party, when Edward breaks up with her and he tells her he's going to leave and all this other kind of stuff, then, it definitely comes off more like, and so Bella's comatose for all those months. It definitely comes off more, at least in my opinion, it comes off more like she's not sad that she lost him. She's not sad that she lost her boyfriend. That's one thing, I know a lot of people are saying about the Twilight series, it's not healthy because it's a story about a woman who's so codependent on a relationship that, she can't function on her own and everything else. Like I said, I don't really see it that way, I see it more as like this, I see it more as like this woman, when she goes in that whole comatose thing, it's like she is crushed. I'll give you that. She is crushed. She's destroyed, not because she's not with Edward anymore, but because she's not going to be able to have that power that she desperately wants from him. You could tell, or at least that's the way I interpreted it was, she wanted to be with him because she wanted him to turn her into what he is so that she would have that power. She would be able to, she could have all of those things, whether he's part of her or not, doesn't even seem like it fits in the equation that much. It just kind of feels more like she just wants his power. She just wants, what he has instead of wanting him. And so he leaves. And like I said, it just comes off to me more like she just more wanted the power of being a vampire more than she wanted him. And then you bring Jacob into the picture and stuff like that. And I would be willing to bet you if Jacob, as a werewolf, if Jacob had the power that Edward did, and he was able to give her eternal youth, eternal beauty, and everything else, I'd be willing to bet you she probably, she never would have ran off to Italy to save Edward the way she did. She never would have done stuff like that. Never in a million years. She would have been like, okay, I can do this here, and all this. I got Jacob and everything else. And, but I think that's a lot of it. And I think the reason why Jacob really never was going to be a suitor for her in the first place is he just wasn't sexy enough to her. He wasn't attractive or alluring enough to her in the sense that the vampires are. The vampires are always beautiful. The vampires are always good looking and young and vigorous looking and all this, even though they're pale as fuck. But, he just didn't appeal to her. And the fact that he turns into the big giant wolf and everything else and that they can rage out and all that kind of stuff. I mean, granted, the vampires could do it too. It just kind of comes off like, no offense, but Bella does kind of come off as a bit shallow. And she's more wanting Edward because, Edward is just the more appealing monster. Like I said, if Stephanie Myers had, gone with the old vampire myth and the old vampire legend and kind of tailored Edward to fit more of that mold, I'd be willing to bet you there would be more. She would have more of a conflict about wanting to be with him, and the fact that he, even though he tries, I mean, that's the thing. How many vampire stories are there of vampires that try so hard to stop being, a vampire, stop killing people, drinking their blood, but ultimately they can't fight what's in their nature to do and everything. And like I said, I think that would have been far more appealing. But this idea that, also too, it bugs me. It really bugs me. I can't help it, but it kind of gets on my nerves, especially in the first Twilight, when Bella is, it's like Bella sitting here eating all this vegetarian food. She's eating veggie burgers, spinach salads, all this other kind of shit. And she's giving her dad a hard time because he likes to eat steak and everything else. So you get the sense, okay, so she's either like vegetarian or she's vegan. And, because her dad is this kind of old-fashioned guy, he likes his steak and his burgers and stuff like that. So she's going to give him a hard time about it and tell him he needs to get off the animal products and all that other kind of stuff. Yet once Bella finds out that she can have eternal youth, eternal beauty, always be sexy, always be young, all this other kind of stuff, but she would have to kill vampires, or she would have to kill animals to do it. You notice? Yeah, all of a sudden all that shit goes away. It's like she don't care about the animals then. It's like, sorry, Bambi, you and Thumper, if it means I get to stay young and beautiful forever, you and Thumper are going down, It just always, the hypocrisy just kind of always bothered me just in that sort of thing, I mean, I just don't think they should have added that element into it that, and in the very beginning that Bella was this kind of like vegetarian or vegan, whatever she was supposed to be, because it really does. It makes her, in my opinion, it just makes Bella look like a hypocrite once. It's all like, oh, you can be eternally young, you can be eternally beautiful, but you have to kill animals to do it and everything. She's like, okay, yeah, that's fine with me. I got no problems killing animals and stuff like that. And then, going off from there. And then, of course, and it's like, of course, she's going to choose Edward over Jacob and all this kind of stuff. And then when I think that's one of the things though too, it definitely makes Bella look unappealing whenever she talks to Jacob, she always talks to him like a dumb little child. At least that's the way I come across it, it's like when she's like in Eclipse, when he comes up and he's like, telling Edward about, you guys need to stay on your turf and don't mess with us and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, why haven't you called me? And it's all like, if this were reality, you know what guys would have told her? They would have told her to go out and play in oncoming traffic. They would have told her to go play Russian roulette by herself. Okay. And, you'll know when, you finish the game, that kind of thing. I mean, a lot of guys, at least guys I know, they would be like, you know what? It's like, don't fucking talk to me like that. Okay. You made your decision. Okay. It's all like, you're going to be with him. All right. I don't, when you call, I don't have to drop everything I'm doing and answer the phone when you call. Okay. You made your decision. You're going on. I'm going to go live my life. I'm moving on and all this kind of stuff. You're going to move on. I'm going to move on. Okay. So there's nowhere saying that, just because you call on the phone, I have to drop everything I'm doing and answer your calls, and that was, so that was kind of a thing though too, I know guys that's exactly what they would do. And then, you have the war, where which of course too, as a guy, you really would have loved to have seen it. You really would have loved to have had this great, amazing battle scene between, these vampires and stuff like that, and the werewolves coming in and helping out and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the pièce de résistance is when Bella, becomes pregnant and she gives birth to the baby, but she's about to die. So Edward bites her and this transforms her into a vampire so that she doesn't die. And then, of course, Jacob he's so mad because Bella's dead and he goes to kill the baby. But as soon as he gets a look at that baby, he's like, oh yeah, that's my girl right there. I need to get me some of that. And it's like, that is easily one of the most repugnant, disturbing things I think I've ever seen in a movie. I think most people feel that way. It's just, they try to explain it. It's like, well, he imprinted on her and stuff like that. He imprinted on a baby. It's gross. Okay, Jacob is a P word. All right, and I never really, and I got to be honest. I just never really bought the love story between Jacob and Bella. It just always kind of comes off more like, to me, it always kind of came off more like Jacob didn't really want to be with her. It always kind of came off more like Jacob really just wanted Bella because Edward did. As a werewolf, he's, an enemy to the vampires and all this kind of stuff. And it just kind of seemed more like, at least that's the way it came across to me, is like he wanted Bella because if he could get Bella, not so much because he wanted her, but that would be a win for the werewolves. And that would be a way they could stick it to the vampires. That's just kind of the way it came off to me. So I just never really bought into the Jacob Bella kind of love story or anything like that. And then, you have what could have been one of the best battle scenes in all of the Twilight movies, only to find out it never happened and all that stuff. And then, your story ends with, Bella and Edward going off living happily ever after and all this kind of stuff. And then Jacob gets to be with the underage girl. And I'm sorry, but it's just, you factor all these things in together. And I'm sorry, just, I think also too, just I've seen vampire love stories done better. Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola version, is a much, is a good example of that. And we've seen vampire love stories done quite well. And I think that's basically the biggest overall thing about it is just it's been done better, and it's been done in a more interesting, entertaining way. And like I said, like the idea of, you take your female character who has to learn to love that she loves this person, but he is this monster and she has to learn to love the monster as well. I think that's a more interesting story. And I think to just kind of like take a shortcut and kind of bypass all that just doesn't work to me, in my opinion. But so anyway, that's just some of my thoughts about why just Twilight just doesn't work for me. And let's face facts, it was not supposed to work for me. These stories were not written with somebody like me in mind. But, I just kind of wanted to give some thoughts about that, like why I'm not into it and stuff like that. Also, too, I just think it's kind of funny, like I said, that, you put Kristen Stewart in there, then you put all these other really beautiful, gorgeous women in these movies, and you have to try to especially like Kristen Serratos is the main standout. Kristen Serratos, if you don't know, she played Rosa on Walking Dead. It's clear the woman she's a 10. The woman is a friggin' stunner and all this stuff. And so they put her these big thick glasses. They really tried to play down her looks, because obviously you don't want her to look better than Kristen Stewart does. But just, ugh. And then you got like Anna Kendrick and all that kind of stuff. If they had gone, I heard at one point they were going to do Emily Browning to play Bella, and I think that would have been a much better idea. Emily Browning, if you don't know, she played Baby Doll in the movie Sucker Punch. I think she would have been a better fit. That's just me. But it is what it is, as they say. So, but yeah, just, Twilight just doesn't work for me. And, it's not supposed to. I'm not the audience for it. We all know that, so. But anyway, I just wanted to give some thoughts about that. Just kind of, give my 2 cents on it. So, that's it. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave it a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And that's it. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. See you all later. Bye.